Choi Min A stood before the mirror, studying her reflection. 32 years old, round-faced, slightly plump, a figure she had always tried to hide beneath loose clothing. She ran her hand over her stomach and sighed. Ever since giving birth to her son 5 years ago, her weight had never returned to its old numbers. But Jin Woo never complained. He always said he loved her just the way she was. In 3 weeks, it would be their 8th wedding anniversary, 8 years during which Min A had tried to be the perfect wife. She cooked her husband's favorite dishes, kept the house spotless, raised their son, Ho Jun, attended every company event where Kim Jin Woo, her husband, worked as a director. His business, importing cosmetics from Japan and France, was thriving. They lived in a spacious apartment in the prestigious Gangnam district, drove a new Mercedes, and could afford a vacation abroad once a year. But over the past 6 months, Min A had begun to notice changes. Jin Woo stayed late at work more often than usual. He came home late, smelling of unfamiliar perfume, and looked away whenever she tried to meet his gaze. He now carried his phone everywhere, even into the shower. His answers to her questions were curt, irritated. And worst of all, he had stopped touching her. Completely. Min A tried to blame it on fatigue, on work stress. But her unease grew by the day. 2 weeks ago, she made a desperate decision. Her friend Lim Soo Yeon, whom she had known since school, worked as an HR manager at a small company. Over dinner at Soo Yeon's house, Min A casually mentioned that she was thinking about finding a part-time job. Part-time job? Soo Yeon asked in surprise, sipping her wine. Why? Jin Woo earns plenty. I want to buy him an anniversary gift, Min A admitted. Something special. A Swiss watch he's been dreaming about. It costs nearly 5 million won. I don't want to ask him for money for his own gift. Soo Yeon nodded, her short hair gleaming under the chandelier. I get it. But what kind of job can you find? You haven't worked for years, you've been home with your child. I can clean, Min A said quietly. Or wash dishes at a cafe. Anything, as long as I can earn the money quickly. Soo Yeon thought for a moment, turning her wineglass in her fingers. You know what? There's an opening for a night cleaner at Jin Woo's company. The previous woman quit last week. It's from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And the pay's decent. You'd make enough for the watch in about 3 weeks. At Jin Woo's company? Min A felt her stomach tighten. But he'll find out. He won't, Soo Yeon smirked. He leaves every day at 6. You'll come in at 10, when the office is empty. No one will see you. I'll register you under a different surname. What do you think? Min A hesitated only for a moment. The idea was risky but tempting. She could earn the money for the gift, and at the same time check her suspicions. If Jin Woo really stayed late every night, then she had nothing to worry about. Deal, she said. The next day, Soo Yeon called to say everything was arranged. Min A was to start work that Friday. She would receive a uniform, office keys, a mop, and cleaning supplies. The head of the cleaning staff would explain what to do. Friday came quickly. Min A lied to her husband, saying she was going to her mother's for the weekend with Ho Jun. Jin Woo nodded without even lifting his eyes from his tablet. Their son stayed with his grandmother in the neighboring district, and at 9:30 that night, Min A arrived at the office building where her husband's company was located. She was met by an elderly woman named Lee Suk, the head of the cleaning staff. Lee handed her a uniform, gray overalls, and a white t-shirt, led her through the floors, showed her where everything was, and explained the cleaning routine. Start from the 3rd floor and finish with the 1st, Lee Suk said, breathing heavily as they climbed the stairs. The director's office is last. 4th floor, biggest room, panoramic windows. Be careful, expensive furniture. All right, murmured Min A, gripping the mop tightly. Here are the keys, Lee said, handing her a bunch. They're for all the offices. The director's door is usually unlocked. He locks it himself when he leaves. Min A nodded and began to work. The first 2 hours flew by. She mopped floors, wiped desks, emptied trash bins, scrubbed toilets. The work was hard. Her back ached. Her hands were red from the cleaning chemicals. But she didn't complain. She thought about the watch she'd give Jin Woo, how happy he'd be, how he'd hug her and tell her she was the best wife in the world. At 1:30, she went up to the 4th floor. The only room there was the director's office. Min A pushed the door. It was ajar. And in that instant, her world collapsed. The light in the office was dim, only a desk lamp glowed in the corner. But it was enough for Min A to see something that would be burned into her memory forever. On the huge wooden desk, the same one where Jin Woo usually signed contracts and held meetings with partners, lay a woman. Her head was thrown back, long hair spilling across the papers. And over her, shirt unbuttoned, bent a man. Jin Woo. Her husband. And the woman was Lim Soo Yeon, her best friend. Min A stood frozen in the doorway, gripping the mop so tightly her knuckles turned white. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. A ringing filled her ears, dark spots danced before her eyes. Then she heard Jin Woo's voice, low, hoarse, thick with desire. "My wife's fat and boring, but you. You're fire," he said, kissing Soo Yeon's neck. "You're so hot, so passionate. With you, I feel alive." Soo Yeon laughed, bright, triumphant. "And her?" she asked, wrapping her legs around his waist. "Does she know you're here with me every night?" "No," Jin Woo replied. "And she never will. She's too stupid to suspect anything. She believes I'm working. She always believes me." The mop slipped from Min A's hands and crashed to the floor. Jin Woo and Soo Yeon froze, their heads snapping toward the door. Min A stepped into the room and groped for the light switch. Click. The bright light flooded the office, cruelly revealing every detail: the crumpled papers on the desk, the clothes scattered across the floor, the shocked faces of two lovers caught in their shame. Jin Woo jumped up, hastily fastening his belt. His face turned pale, his mouth open, but no words came out. Soo Yeon sat up on the desk, clutching her blouse to her chest, staring at Min A with wide, terrified eyes. The silence was deafening. The wall clock ticked. The lights of nighttime Seoul flickered outside the window. And inside the office stood three people, each of whose worlds had just changed forever. Min A looked at her husband. The man she had lived with for 8 years. The man who fathered her son. The man she had trusted completely. The man who had just called her fat, stupid, and boring. Something inside her broke. And yet, strangely, she felt no pain. Only an icy calm. A terrifying clarity of thought. "Jin Woo," she said evenly, surprised at her own composure. "Expect the divorce papers tomorrow." Jin Woo finally found his voice. "Min A. It's not what you think," he stammered, taking a step toward her. "Don't come closer," she cut him off. "And you, Soo Yeon," she turned her gaze to her former friend, "don't you ever set foot in my house again." Soo Yeon jumped down from the desk, her face twisted in panic. "Min A, please, listen. It was an accident." "We didn't mean—" "Be quiet," Min A said calmly. "I'm not interested in your excuses. You're both dead to me." She turned and walked out of the office. Her footsteps echoed down the empty corridor. Behind her came Jin Woo's shouts, Soo Yeon's pleading voice, but Min A didn't look back. She went downstairs, changed back into her own clothes, left the uniform and keys on the reception desk, and stepped out of the building. The night air was cool and fresh. Min A sat down on a bench at the bus stop and took out her phone. Her hands didn't tremble. Her heartbeat was steady. She dialed the number of a lawyer she knew through mutual friends, Han Min-jae, a specialist in divorce cases. "Hello?" came a sleepy voice. Mr. Han, this is Choi Min A, she said. I'm sorry to call so late. I need your help. I want to file for divorce first thing tomorrow morning. Min A didn't sleep that night. She went back to her mother's house, where she had left her son, took Ho Jun, and went to a small hotel in Itaewon. She paid cash for a week's stay and collapsed onto the bed. Ho Jun was sound asleep beside her, clutching his stuffed bear. Min A looked at his peaceful face and felt rage rising inside her. How could Jin Woo? How could Soo Yeon? Her husband's betrayal hurt deeply, but her friend's betrayal cut even deeper. They had met in high school. Soo Yeon had been bright and confident, while Min A was shy and quiet. Soo Yeon had protected her from bullies, helped her study, shared secrets with her. They were like sisters. Min A had invited Soo Yeon to her wedding. Soo Yeon was Ho Jun's godmother. They had spent weekends together, traveled, confided in each other. And all that time, Soo Yeon had been sleeping with her husband. Min A got up and walked to the window. Dawn was breaking outside. The city was waking up, people hurrying to work, someone sipping coffee at a street cafe, someone laughing on the phone. An ordinary Saturday morning. But for Min A, this day would mark the beginning of a new life. At 9 a.m., she called Han Min-jae. The lawyer agreed to meet her in an hour at his office. Min A left her son with the hotel receptionist, an elderly woman who agreed to watch him for a small fee, and went to the meeting. Han Min-jae turned out to be a man in his mid-40s, with a sharp gaze and graying hair. He listened attentively as Min A told her story, taking notes in a small notebook. So you caught your husband with his lover in his office at night, he summarized. Any witnesses? No, Min A replied. The office was empty. Pity. Witnesses would have made things easier. But I think we can get the security camera footage. Office buildings always have cameras. They'll show the three of you there that night. I'll also request phone records. The messages between your husband and his mistress will serve as evidence. All right, said Min A. What should I do? First, don't go back home. Live separately, it shows determination. Second, gather all your documents, marriage certificate, property papers, bank statements. We need to know what assets you share. Third, be prepared, your husband will try to contact you. Don't engage. All communication must go through me. Understood, said Min A, feeling some of her tension ease. Han Min-jae clearly knew what he was doing, and that gave her confidence. One more thing, the lawyer added. If your husband insists on a peaceful settlement, he'll want to split everything 50-50. But you're not obliged to agree. Infidelity is grounds to claim a larger share of the joint assets. The apartment, the car, the business, you can win them. Min A straightened up. I want everything I'm entitled to by law, she said firmly. Jin Woo betrayed me. He'll pay for it. Han Min-jae smiled, for the first time during their meeting. That's the right attitude. Let's get to work. The next few days were a true test for Min A. Her phone rang endlessly. Jin Woo called 20 times a day, sent messages, begged to meet. Min A didn't answer. She blocked his number, and Soo Yeon's too. Jin Woo showed up at her mother's house, but her mother refused to let him in. He tried reaching out to friends and acquaintances, but Min A had warned everyone that she didn't want any contact with him. On Monday, Han Min-jae filed for divorce. Jin Woo received a court summons. 2 days later, the lawyer informed her that he had obtained the surveillance footage and phone records. The picture is clear, he told Min A over the phone. Your husband and Lim Soo Yeon met in the office regularly for the past 4 months. The cameras caught them arriving in the evenings and leaving late at night, sometimes together, sometimes separately. Their text messages. Let's just say, they're quite explicit. The court will undoubtedly rule in your favor. Min A felt a mix of relief and bitterness. 4 months. For 4 months, her husband had deceived her, kissed her goodnight, told her he loved her, and then gone to his mistress. "Thank you," she said quietly. "When is the hearing?" "In a week. Be ready." The courtroom was small and plain, gray walls, rows of wooden benches, a portrait of the president on the wall. Min A sat beside Han Min-jae at the plaintiff's table, staring straight ahead. Across from them, at the defendant's table, sat Jin Woo with his lawyer, a young man with an expensive suit and a nervous tic. Jin Woo looked terrible. Dark circles hung under his eyes, his face was gaunt, his suit hung loosely, he had clearly lost weight. When Min A entered the room, he stood up and tried to approach her, but the bailiff stopped him. Min A didn't even glance in his direction. The judge, a stern woman in her 50s, called the court to order. The plaintiff, Choi Min A, has filed for divorce from the defendant, Kim Jin Woo, on the grounds of marital infidelity, she read. "Please present your evidence." Han Min-jae stood and handed the judge a folder of documents. Then he turned on a projector and played the surveillance footage. The screen showed the office building's parking lot at night. Jin Woo stepped out of his car. Minutes later, another car arrived, and Soo Yeon emerged. They met by the entrance. Jin Woo put an arm around her waist, they kissed, and went inside. Next recording, they exited 3 hours later. Soo Yeon adjusted her tousled hair. Jin Woo held her by the elbow. They kissed again before parting. Another clip. And another. Dozens of them spanning 4 months. Jin Woo's lawyer tried to object. "These recordings do not conclusively prove an affair. My client and Ms. Lim could have been discussing work matters at midnight. The judge interrupted. "Every day for 4 months? Please don't insult my intelligence." Han Min-jae continued, "We also have the text messages between the defendant and Ms. Lim, legally obtained through a phone company request." The screen filled with screenshots of messages. Min A turned away. She didn't want to read those filthy, deceitful words. The judge flipped through several pages, then set the folder aside. "Enough. The affair has been proven. Let's move on to the division of assets." Jin Woo's lawyer tried to intervene again. "My client is willing to settle amicably. He proposes to split the assets equally, the apartment, the car, and the company's holdings." "No," Han Min-jae said firmly. "My client demands full ownership of the apartment, full ownership of the car, and 50% of the company's assets. This is fair, given the circumstances of the divorce." Jin Woo jumped to his feet. 50%? This is my company. I built it for 10 years. You built it during your marriage, Han Min-jae replied coldly. Therefore, it is marital property. My client is entitled to half. But then I'll go bankrupt. Jin Woo shouted. I won't have money to run the business. The judge banged her gavel. Defendant, remain calm. The court will rule based on the law, not your emotions. The hearing continued for another 2 hours. Lawyers argued, submitted documents, cited legal articles. Min A sat silently, hands clenched in her lap. Jin Woo tried several times to catch her gaze, but she stubbornly stared out the window. Finally, the judge called a recess to prepare the decision. Everyone left the courtroom. Min A walked into the corridor and sat on a bench. Han Min-jae approached her. You did well, he said. Hold your head high. I believe the judge will rule in our favor. And if not? Min A asked quietly. Then we'll appeal. But I'm confident it won't be necessary. The evidence is irrefutable. Half an hour later, everyone was called back into the courtroom. The judge read the verdict. The court rules to dissolve the marriage between Choi Min A and Kim Jin Woo. The apartment at Abgyeongdong, Gangnam-gu, is granted to Choi Min A. The 2023 Mercedes-Benz vehicle is granted to Choi Min A. 50% of the assets of Jin Woo Import are granted to Choi Min A. Court adjourned. Jin Woo collapsed into his chair, covering his face with his hands. His lawyer tried to say something, but Jin Woo didn't listen. Min A stood and left the courtroom. Outside, the sun was shining. She stopped on the steps of the courthouse, lifted her face to the sky, and closed her eyes. For the first time in many days, she felt she could breathe deeply. "Mrs. Choi." A voice called from behind. She turned. Jin Woo was running toward her, pushing past the security guards. "Min A, please, listen to me," he gasped. "I made a terrible mistake. Forgive me. I love you. I didn't mean to hurt you." Min A looked at him calmly. "You don't love me, Jin Woo," she said. "You only love yourself. You called me fat, stupid, and boring. You slept with my best friend for 4 months. You lied to me every single day. That is not love. I've changed," he begged. "Give me a second chance." "No," Min A said firmly. "There's nothing more to discuss." She turned and walked away without looking back. Behind her, Jin Woo's shouts faded, but Min A no longer listened. This chapter of her life was over. After the court ruling, Min A moved into an apartment in Abgyeojang. Jin Woo packed his things and vacated within a week, as the court order required. Min A hired a cleaning service to remove all traces of him from the apartment. She wanted to erase every sign of her past life. Ho-jun struggled with the divorce. The boy cried, asking why his father no longer lived with them. Min A explained as gently as she could, "Daddy and Mommy can't live together anymore. But that doesn't mean Daddy stopped loving you. You'll still see him on weekends." She didn't want to turn her son against his father, even though Jin Woo deserved it. The child had done nothing to deserve a traitorous parent. The first weeks were hard. Min A woke in the middle of the night, crying into her pillow, feeling the emptiness beside her. She had grown used to sleeping with someone, hearing her husband's breath, feeling the warmth of his body. Now the bed seemed enormous and cold. But day by day, it got easier. Min A began going to the gym, signed up for yoga, and spent more time with her son. They strolled in the park, went to the cinema, visited the aquarium. Ho-jun gradually thawed, began laughing and playing again. A month after the court ruling, Min A met with a banking consultant to discuss her finances. 50% of Jin Woo's company assets were worth about 200 million won, a vast sum, and Min A wanted to manage it wisely. "What would you advise?" she asked the consultant, a young woman named Oh Jae-rin. "You could invest in real estate or stocks," Oh Jae-rin suggested. "But if you want steady income, it's better to start your own business." "Start my own business?" Min A repeated thoughtfully. "What kind?" "Something that interests you." "What are your passions?" Min A thought. In recent years, she had lived only for her family, forgetting herself. But long ago, before marriage, she had dreamed of becoming a cosmetologist. She had read articles about skincare, tried different products, performed treatments on her friends. At the time, it seemed like just a hobby. But now, "I want to open a beauty salon," she said suddenly. "Small, but modern. A place where women can not only look their best but also relax and recharge." Oh Jae-rin smiled. "Excellent idea. Beauty salons in Seoul are in high demand. If you find a good location and hire skilled professionals, the business will pay off within a year." "Then that's what I'll do," Min A said decisively. The next 2 months passed in a whirlwind. Min A searched for a location, attended courses for aspiring entrepreneurs, and studied the beauty services market. She found the perfect spot in Sinsa, on the first floor of a new building, with large windows and convenient parking. She leased it for 5 years. Then renovation began. Min A wanted to create a cozy, calming atmosphere, light-colored walls, wooden furniture, soft lighting, scents of lavender and jasmine. She personally selected every detail, from chairs to towels. At the same time, she recruited staff. She posted job ads, conducted interviews. She hired 3 cosmetologists, a manicurist, a hairdresser, and a receptionist. All were experienced women with good references. "I want our salon to be a place where women feel safe," Min A said at the first team meeting. "Where they are not judged, where they are understood and supported. We won't just provide services, we'll give confidence and joy." The women listened eagerly. They loved the idea. The salon opened in early September. Min A named it Rebirth, symbolic, given her own story. Many clients came on opening day, drawn by advertisements and discounts. By evening, all the chairs were full, and the phone was ringing nonstop with bookings. "Congratulations," said Oh Jae-rin, who had come to visit. "You did it." Min A looked around the salon, happy clients, working staff, beautiful interior. Her salon. Her business. Her new life. "Yes," she whispered. "I did it." While Min A's life was coming together, Kim Jin-woo's was falling apart. After the asset division, his company lost half of its working capital. He tried to get a bank loan but was refused, his reputation tarnished by the divorce scandal, financial indicators worsened. Partners began to refuse cooperation. News of the divorce spread quickly through Seoul's business circles. No one wanted to deal with a man who had betrayed his wife and lost control of his own business. Jin Woo tried to stay afloat. He cut staff, reduced expenses, looked for new suppliers. But nothing worked. Debts piled up, clients went to competitors, warehouses emptied. And then there was Lim Soo Yeon. After the court ruling, she continued seeing Jin Woo, but their relationship had changed. She became colder, more distant. She refused to have dinner together, citing busyness. She didn't answer his calls for hours. Jin Woo understood what was happening. Soo Yeon had been with him as long as he was successful and wealthy. Now, as he was losing everything, she was preparing to leave. It happened at the end of October, 5 months after the divorce. Jin Woo went to Soo Yeon's house to talk. He rang the doorbell. No one answered. He called her on the phone. "Hello," Soo Yeon said coldly. "Why aren't you answering the door?" "I'm at your building." "Jin Woo, we need to talk." "Then let's talk." "Open the door." "No. I'll say it over the phone." "We're breaking up." Jin Woo froze. "What?" "I said we're breaking up. It was an interesting experience, but I don't want to continue a relationship with someone who can't provide me a decent life." "Soo Yeon, I'll fix everything. The company is going through temporary difficulties, but I'll recover." "No, you won't. You're bankrupt, Jin Woo. Everyone knows it. And I'm not going down with you." "But you said you loved me." Soo Yeon laughed, harshly, without warmth. "Love? Are you serious? I was with you for pleasure and benefit. Now I have neither. Goodbye." She hung up. Jin Woo stood on the street, clutching his phone, feeling a growing emptiness inside. He had lost everything: his wife, his son, his home, his business, even his mistress. Only debts and disappointment remained. A month later, Jin Woo Import was declared bankrupt. The office closed, assets sold off to pay debts. Jin Woo was left without a job, without money, and with a ruined reputation. He rented a tiny room in an old building on the outskirts of Seoul, survived on instant noodles, and looked for work. But no one would hire him for a decent position. His name was too well known, his failure too public. One evening, scrolling through job listings, Jin Woo came across a familiar name: Beauty Salon Rebirth is hiring a security guard. The address was in Sinsa. He Googled the name and saw photos of the salon on the website: modern interior, pleasant atmosphere. On the homepage was a photo of the owner, Choi Min A. His ex-wife. Jin Woo stared at her photo for a long time. Min A had changed. She had lost weight, styled her hair, smiled confidently and calmly. She looked happy. Happier than ever with him. And he had become a pitiful wreck. Jin Woo closed his laptop and buried his face in his hands. For the first time in months, he cried, bitterly, hopelessly, like a child. 2 weeks later, Jin Woo found temporary work as a warehouse loader, but the salary barely covered his room and food. He lost weight, became gaunt, wrinkles appeared on his face. At 35, he looked 50. Every day, returning from work, he passed by Rebirth. The salon was close to the warehouse, and Jin Woo deliberately took that route. He stopped at the window, watched the staff at work, and saw clients leaving happy and beautiful. Sometimes he saw Min A. She sat at the receptionist's desk, talking to clients, smiling. She had blossomed. She had become more confident, stronger, more beautiful. The divorce had done her good. And it had destroyed him. One evening in mid-November, Jin Woo mustered the courage to enter the salon. The receptionist, a young woman around 25 with a friendly face, greeted him at the entrance. "Good evening. How can I help you?" I'm here about the security guard position," Jin Woo mumbled. "Oh, one moment. I'll call the owner." The girl disappeared into the back of the salon. Jin Woo stood at the entrance, clutching a crumpled cap. His heart beat so loudly it seemed it could be heard outside. And then she appeared. Choi Min A. His ex-wife. The woman he had betrayed, humiliated, and abandoned. Min A stopped a few meters from him and looked him directly in the eyes. Her face was calm, unreadable. Jin Woo couldn't tell what she was feeling. "Jin Woo," she said quietly. "Min A," he exhaled. "I'm sorry. I didn't know this was your salon." "You're lying," she interrupted calmly. "You knew. You walk by every day and look in the windows." Jin Woo blushed. She had noticed him. I need a job," he said. "Anything. I saw the ad for the security guard." "We filled that position yesterday," Min A replied. "We hired someone. Maybe there are other vacancies? I can mop floors, take out the trash, anything." "No. Min A, please." Jin Woo stepped toward her, but she raised her hand to stop him. "I have nothing to live on. I've lost everything. I don't even have money for food." "And whose fault is that?" Min A asked coldly. Jin Woo lowered his head. "Mine. I know. I'm terrible. I destroyed our family, betrayed you, hurt you. But I regret it, Min A. I'm so sorry for what I did. If I could turn back time." "But you can't," she interrupted. "Time doesn't come back. You made your choice. Called me fat, stupid, and boring. Cheated on me for 4 months with my best friend. Lied every day. And now you come here asking for help?" "I'm not asking for help. I'm asking for a job. I'm willing to work." "All our staff are female," Min A said firmly. "All the employees are women. I created this salon as a safe space for women. And I will not change that concept. But goodbye, Jin Woo." She turned and walked back into the depths of the salon. Jin Woo wanted to shout after her, fall to his knees, beg for forgiveness. But he just stood there, silent and crushed. The receptionist gently took his elbow and guided him to the exit. "I'm sorry, but you need to leave," she said. Jin Woo nodded and stepped outside. The November evening was cold, the wind tearing at his tattered jacket. He walked away slowly, hunched over, bent under the weight of his own guilt. After the visit, Min A couldn't calm down for a long time. She returned to her office, sat in her chair, and wrapped her arms around herself. Seeing her ex-husband in such a pitiful state was strange. She didn't feel satisfaction. She didn't feel joy at his suffering. She just felt emptiness. This man had once been her husband, the father of her child, someone she trusted. And now he had become a stranger, reaping the consequences of his own actions. Min A sighed and opened her laptop. She needed to focus on work. The salon was thriving. 3 months after opening, the client base had tripled. Regular clients brought friends, who brought acquaintances. Word of mouth worked better than any advertisement. Min A was planning to expand. She wanted to open a second branch in another district of Seoul and also launch her own line of cosmetics. Oh Jae-rin was helping with the business plan and finding investors. "You're a successful entrepreneur," Oh Jae-rin said at one of their meetings. "Many women envy you. You managed to rise after the divorce and build a new life." "I'm just doing what I have to," Min A replied. "I'm a mother. I need to provide for my son." "That's more than just providing. You inspire other women. Do you know how many clients come to you specifically because they've heard your story? They see in you an example of strength and dignity." Min A was surprised. "My story? How do they know?" Oh Jae-rin smiled. "In Seoul, everyone knows everything, especially in business circles. The story of a wife catching her husband with his mistress and winning half of his business has become legendary. You're a hero to many women." Min A didn't know how to respond. She had never thought of herself as a hero. She had simply been trying to survive, endure the pain, and move forward. But maybe Oh Jae-rin was right. Perhaps her story could help other women who found themselves in similar situations. Women who were afraid to leave a cheater, afraid to be left without money, afraid of judgment. "You know what?" Min A said suddenly. "I want to create a support program at the salon for women going through divorce. Psychological counseling, legal assistance, even free beauty treatments, so they can feel beautiful and confident." Oh Jae-rin nodded. "That's a great idea. It will attract even more clients." "It's not about the clients," Min A said softly. "It's about helping. I've been through it. I know how painful, how frightening it is. If I can help even one woman, it already matters." The program launched in December. Min A hired a psychologist, an experienced woman named Soo Yeon, who specialized in crisis situations. She also arranged with a law firm to provide free consultations. The first group consisted of 5 women. All of them were going through a divorce or breakup. They were all confused, depressed, unsure how to move forward. Min A attended the first meeting. She told her story, honestly, without sugarcoating. About catching her husband with her best friend. About how much it hurt and scared her. About how she found the strength to leave and start over. The women listened intently. Some cried, some nodded, recognizing themselves in her words. "You made it through," said one of the women, a young mother holding her baby. "I'm afraid I won't. I have no money, no job, no support." "You will," Min A said firmly. "Because you have the most important thing, the desire to change your life. Everything else will follow. I will help you. We all will help." After the meeting, several women approached her, thanked her, hugged her. Min A felt warmth in her chest. For the first time in a long while, she felt she was doing something truly meaningful. A few months passed. Spring arrived. Rebirth had become one of the most popular salons in Seoul. Min A opened a second branch in Itaewon and was preparing to launch her own line of cosmetics. Ho Jun had grown calmer and more confident. He regularly saw his father on weekends but no longer cried about the divorce. The boy had accepted the new reality. Min A moved forward too. She met with friends, went to the theater and exhibitions, traveled with her son. Life was full and rich. And then she met him. It happened at a business conference for entrepreneurs in March. Min A was giving a talk on women in business when a man approached her afterward. "Good afternoon," he said. "My name is Yoon San-ho. I wanted to thank you for your inspiring speech." Min A looked up. A man in his 40s stood before her, tall, with a pleasant face and warm eyes. He was dressed simply but tastefully, a gray sweater, jeans, thin-framed glasses. "Thank you," she smiled. "It's nice to hear that." "I own a chain of bookstores," Yoon San-ho continued. "And honestly, your story touched me. I also went through a divorce 2 years ago. I know how difficult it is." They started talking. Yoon San-ho had a lot in common with Min A. He was also a single parent, raising a teenage daughter. He had also built a business from scratch after his divorce. He, too, believed in the importance of support and mutual help. After the conference, they exchanged phone numbers. Yoon San-ho wrote to her the next day and suggested meeting for coffee. Min A agreed. They met regularly for a month. Went to cafes, walked in the park, talked about everything under the sun. Yoon San-ho was attentive, considerate, with a great sense of humor. He didn't pressure her or rush her, giving her time to get used to his presence. One evening at the end of April, they sat on a bench by the Han River, watching the sunset. The water shimmered gold and pink as the city slowly sank into twilight. "Min A," Yoon San-ho said quietly, "I want to tell you something." "Yes?" "I enjoy spending time with you. You're smart, strong, and interesting. And I would like to get to know you better. Not as an acquaintance, but as something more." Min A looked at him. Her heart beat fast. After the divorce, she hadn't thought about relationships. She thought she would never be able to trust anyone again. But Yoon San-ho was different. He was honest, reliable, kind. "I want to get to know you better too," she replied softly. Yoon San-ho smiled and took her hand. They sat silently, watching the sun sink below the horizon and the first stars appear over the city. A year had passed since the divorce. Rebirth had become a well-known brand in Seoul. Min A opened a third branch and launched a line of organic cosmetics, which was in high demand. The support program had already helped over 50 women going through divorce. Many of them found jobs, started new lives, and regained confidence in themselves. Her relationship with Yoon San-ho developed slowly but steadily. They introduced their children, spent weekends together, and made plans for the future. Yoon San-ho never compared Min A to his ex-wife, never criticized her appearance, never demanded the impossible. He accepted her as she was, with her strengths and flaws. Ho-jun grew fond of him. The boy called him Uncle San-ho and enjoyed spending time with him. Yoon San-ho's 15-year-old daughter, Yoon-hee, became friends with Min A and even asked her to teach her how to do manicures. As for Kim Jin-woo, Min A hardly heard about him. She knew from mutual acquaintances that he had found work as a salesperson at an electronics store, rented a room on the outskirts of the city, and lived modestly and quietly. Occasionally, he came to pick up his son on weekends, but there were no conversations between them, just dry phrases about time and place. Lim Soo Yeon had moved to another city and also disappeared from Min A's life. She didn't miss her former friend. Betrayal had erased all good memories. At the end of May, Min A sat in her office reviewing financial reports. The business was thriving, debt-free, with profits growing every month. She had bought a new, larger apartment to provide space for her son and her new life. She had even started saving for Ho-jun's university education. There was a knock at the door. The administrator entered. "Miss Choi, you have a visitor." "Who?" "Kim Jin-woo. He says it's important." Min A frowned. What could he possibly want this time? "Let him in." Jin-woo entered the office. He looked better than the last time, neatly dressed, though in cheap clothes, clean-shaven. but his eyes still carried fatigue and hopelessness. "Hi, Min A," he said quietly. "Hello," she replied dryly. "What do you want?" Jin Woo looked down, fidgeting with a small envelope in his hands. "I came to apologize. Truly. Not because I need a job or money, but because you deserve to hear it." Min A leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "I'm listening." "I was a terrible husband," Jin Woo began, his voice trembling. "I didn't appreciate you. I didn't see how hard you worked, how much you cared for the family, how you loved me. I was blind, selfish, prideful. I thought I deserved more, that you weren't good enough for me. But the truth is, it was I who wasn't good enough for you." He lifted his head, and Min A saw tears in his eyes. "I lost everything. Business, money, the house. But worst of all, I lost you and Ho Jun. Every day I wake up and realize the enormity of my mistake. Every day I see you thriving, happy, and I understand that this could have been our happiness. But I destroyed it with my own hands." Min A remained silent. She listened but felt neither pity nor anger, only calm detachment. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Jin Woo continued. "I know I don't deserve it. I just want you to know, you were right. About everything. You were a wonderful wife, a wonderful mother, a wonderful person. And I was a fool who didn't see it." He handed her the envelope. "These are money for Ho Jun's expenses. A little, everything I could save over these months. I know you don't need it, but I need to do something. Be a father, in some way." Min A took the envelope without opening it. "Thank you," she said. "I'll put it in Ho Jun's account. For his future." "Thank you," Jin Woo exhaled. "And I heard you have a new relationship. With that bookseller. Ho Jun told me." Min A tensed. "And?" "Nothing. I'm happy for you. Truly. You deserve to be happy. I hope he treats you the way you deserve to be treated. The way I couldn't." They looked at each other for a few seconds. Two people who had once been a family, now strangers. "That's all?" Min A asked. "Yes," Jin Woo nodded. "That's all. Sorry to bother you." He turned and walked toward the door. At the threshold, he paused without looking back. "Min A, be happy. You deserve it." And he left. Min A stayed alone in the office. She sat motionless for a long time, staring at the closed door. Then she opened the envelope. Inside were 500,000 won, a huge sum for someone barely scraping by. She sighed and put the envelope in her desk drawer. She would transfer the money to her son's account tomorrow. Jin Woo had been right about one thing: she didn't need the money. Her life was stable, successful, full of meaning. And most importantly, she believed in love again. And the kind, honest, real love that Yoon San-ho gave her. Love based on respect, trust, and support. That evening, Min A was closing the salon. All the clients had left, the staff had gone home, only she and the cleaner, who was mopping the floors, remained. Min A stood at the entrance, looking at the softly lit rebirth sign. How symbolic. A year ago, she had been crushed, betrayed, and empty. Now she was the owner of a successful business, a happy mother, a woman who had opened her heart again. Her phone vibrated. A message from Yoon San-ho: "How's your day? Want to have dinner together? He made your favorite, cheese tteokbokki." Min A smiled and replied, "With pleasure. On my way in 20 minutes. Love you both." She locked up the salon, got into her car, and drove, not backward, to the past, but forward, to the future. To the people who truly loved her. To the life she had built with her own hands. To the happiness she deserved. And Kim Jin Woo stood at the bus stop, watching Min A's car drive away. He saw her smile, the ease in her movements, and he understood that he had lost her forever. The bus arrived. Jin Woo sat by the window, resting his head against the glass. The city passed by, bright, noisy, indifferent. Somewhere out there lived his ex-wife, happy and free. Somewhere out there was his son, needing him less and less. Somewhere out there was the life he had destroyed. He closed his eyes. Self-pity wouldn't help. Tears wouldn't bring back the past. There was only one thing left, to move forward, carry the weight of his own mistakes, and hope that someday, maybe, he would learn to be better. But Min A was no longer part of that path. She had found her own, bright, straight, leading to happiness. And that was only fair. 2 years later, Rebirth had become a network of 7 branches across the country. Min A received the Woman Entrepreneur of the Year award, her story was published in magazines, and she was invited on television. She had become a symbol of strength, dignity, and the ability to start over. Yoon San-ho proposed to her on a warm summer evening on the roof of his bookstore, under the stars. Min A said yes without hesitation. They married in the fall, modestly, among close friends and family. Ho-jun and Yoon-hee became brother and sister. The children got along wonderfully. Min A was happy. Truly, deeply happy. She had found the love she had been searching for all her life. Love that gave, rather than demanded. That healed, rather than hurt. And somewhere on the outskirts of Seoul, Kim Jin-woo continued working in the electronics store, living in a tiny room, economizing on everything. Once a month, he saw his son and brought gifts, cheap toys that the boy accepted politely but without much interest. Jin-woo watched TV late at night and occasionally saw Min A on news programs or talk shows. She spoke about business, women's solidarity, the importance of believing in oneself. She shone from within. And each time he saw her, Jin-woo realized a simple truth: some mistakes cannot be undone. One can only accept the consequences and move forward. He had destroyed his own life. No one else was to blame. And Choi Min A, the woman he once called fat, stupid, and boring, had become a legend. Proof that betrayal is not the end. It is a beginning. The beginning of a new, better life. And that life belonged only to her.